general nature thereof? Seeing none, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from last month's meeting? Do I have a motion to accept? Anna, I see your hand. Seconded. Amita or Jody, all in favor? Okay, that's that. And we are deferring the updates from the working groups until the new year. Update on the climate action plan. So, okay, and this goes a little bit into new business. So by now we've all received the draft manager's report from Chris at the city. Did everyone have a chance to go through that after we provided updates to him and suggestions? Anna, you haven't received it?
Are we talking about the document that was circulated before the last meeting, or was there one since then?
No, you're right, Jeff.
Was there an update?
Sorry guys, I'm going back in my memory. He made some changes and then sent out the draft. Yeah, so I think you've all received it. I was getting that confused with the survey that he sent out to all of us. So that is the update on the climate action plan. You will have seen also in your email that council discussing it has been postponed. And Chris was hopeful that it would get in front of council before the end of the year, I think, but didn't happen obviously on the November 23rd that we expected. I think that's just because there have been so many active projects happening at the city level. And hopefully you've seen that Climate Momentum, the volunteer group, is still encouraging people to apply pressure to the city council to receive that climate action plan and vote on it sooner than later, because of course it's as a result of a climate emergency. That is the update from me. Jody, do you have anything to add?
Only that we are in budget discussions now. So the climate coordinator position did come up, and it was left out of the budget originally, along with a few other projects. However, I definitely expressed my interest in seeing that position continue. And so it looks like, and actually Kathy Vasilakos flagged a fund that could be used to fund that position without us taking money out of the budget. So in other words, money that we had saved up for various community projects, this would be a great one to spend it on. So yeah, just yesterday I was saying how important it is for us to continue the momentum of having a coordinator, having somebody to finish the plan for us and to take us forward with it until such time as we can kind of, we're sort of well on our way. So that's the update I have from on the council side of things. And I also think that I'm assuming everybody's done the survey now that the climate coordinator created, and that will give her a lot of data back, which will then inform our plan, one would hope. Yeah. So that's maybe that's another reason the brakes were put on, because she might have been thinking that would be a good piece of information to have along with all the others for the city to put together a plan.
And I saw your hand, and then Bonnie.
I was just wondering, just to be clear, Chris didn't send an updated document since our last meeting, right?
No, sorry, that was mine.
Okay, because one of the things we talked about was getting in the notes, and it's in the notes from the last meeting, was getting in something about the city working with the industrial section and business, which is particularly important now in view of this Genie proposal. So I'm just wondering whether we got anywhere with putting in notes on the city using the climate lens when it's dealing with industrial and business organizations.
Yeah, and we did pass that comment on to Chris. I'll go back into my email with him and send you what he was, what his reply was in terms of how he was going to incorporate that.
And then will he send an updated version? Will we see an updated version, do you think?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we will before it goes before council.
Okay.
But he's also, there's been a lot of back and forth about like the target and just more suggestions. So, and he's been really communicative on that. So if you're wanting to see an updated version, like, you're more than welcome to contact him.
Okay.
I can also just I'll go through my notes and just see how we left it. I'm having trouble recalling it, the detail. Okay. So I'll do that and then send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And Bonnie, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, just to go on Anna's comment. Yeah, I thought we were going to see an update because we did offer some suggestions. So if that plan is going to council without our suggestions, then does that get passed? And then how do things get changed? Like, I'm not sure. So.
Okay, I'll go through my emails and send it out to the committee.
Okay.
Did we receive updated? Okay. Oh, Bonnie, I see your hand up.
Yes. When it's going to come to council, maybe Casey can do this or tell Jody to do it. They can send us a copy when it's going to go to council because it'll be on the city website for everybody to see the report, right? So it can just be sent to us once it's updated. My understanding was they were waiting for one more thing to come. That's why they didn't want to do it in November. They wanted to make sure they had it all together. And in answer to, saying, have you done the survey? I've tried to do it twice now. Once I got 73% of the way through, kicked me out. When I went back, it was gone. And I had signed in under my name, but when I signed back in under my name again, I was at 7%. So then I tried it again and I got 67% of the way. All of a sudden it wasn't under my name. So I don't know what's going on. I'll try it again, but.
You're not the first person to have trouble with it because Jeff Love, who used to be on this committee, he said he tried to do it about 3 times and he was finally able, he switched what he was using. I think he went from his phone to his computer or vice versa, and one worked better than the other, I think, but he spent about 20 minutes trying to complete it, which is not good considering we want to have a really high response rate.
Yeah, because there's a lot of reading. If you click on each link, then there's a lot. It's good information for sure.
Okay.
I had commented on the one question because, they'll ask you a question, are you planning to do this or you plan to do that? So how do you answer that if you're not? I was writing that in my comments, right? But I mean, I'll try it again. And if I have trouble, what I'll do is email them and tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice, so I made my way all the way through it. There were a couple of questions I didn't answer because one of them was like for farmers, right? So I couldn't really, I was never 100% done because I didn't answer those questions. So I just hit submit anyway. There is a point where you can just say, just send her in. And then once you submit, at the very end, it actually shows you the results so far. And I think there was like 140-ish responses that have been logged in so far, which is not bad. I mean, we want more, obviously, but so far that's, I think, not a bad response rate. But yeah, I found it was quite educational, I thought. It did take time to go through everything, but it was worth it. But yeah, if you even try it in a different browser, Like if you're using Firefox,
Yeah.
writing Chrome, or, you know, some of these things can be a bit fiddly. So
What did you use, Jody? I use Firefox. What did you use?
actually I ended up using Firefox and it was okay.
Oh, okay, right.
So I have under new business talking about the survey so that we can brainstorm ways that we can get those numbers up. So 140, you're right, that's pretty good compared to engagement on other things, but it's not where we want it to be. So I thought we could brainstorm ideas under new business. Remaining 2020 project plan. So this is our last meeting of 2020. So we need to make sure that we have all of our budget spoken for. So Bonnie, do you have an update on the LID project at the skate park?
Yes, I do. We met back a couple of weeks ago. So Quinn was there, Ron Antuma, who's the engineer with Design Plus, Bruce and Adam from the skate park, and then Christy from Rotary. So we looked at the area and it looks, oh, there's Craig. Craig, you made it. We looked at the area, and the way that skate park was designed, it almost looks like it was designed for low impact development, for bioswales and for rain gardens. It's amazing. So there is a water issue, and you can see there's a drainage issue there that's not draining. There was a design done to take that drainage and bring it into the storm drain. And we're proposing that we take the water from there through bioswales into little rain gardens within the cells of the skate park. And then between the skate park and Shakespeare, do a larger rain garden for all the flows to go in and infiltrate into that rain garden. So it's a very exciting project. Storyboards, like information boards, explaining what this is all about and how it works. And I think, I didn't know, but that park is well used, not just by skateboarders, but the public are out there. Quinn said they're having picnics, they're playing tennis, pickleball, the playground. So I think this project, it can be a multi-year project. It sounds like we can go really, really big. So that's very exciting. We're going to go ahead with the design. We'll just do some soil samples just to make sure everything's okay. And then we'll have a design. So Casey, we want to get that off the books this year, right? So we will invoice.
Yeah, correct. So as long as the invoice is dated December 31st, we usually have until about January 20th, 25th.
Okay.
We have to pay it, but as long as the date is 2020.
Okay. So any questions on that? So the good thing too, when MT did the design for this stormwater, we have all the elevations, so Ron can use all those without having to survey the site. So we're good.
Bonnie, what is it's the morning Rotary Club?
Yes.
That's being involved. What's their role?
Their role is to tell the story, and I think funding as well. And I think the bigger Rotary Club will come on board as well. Once we get the project laid out and look at the design and how big this is going to be, it's going to be a community project. Basically, it's an amazing spot to do it.
So obviously when it's completed, we should plan a media event.
Oh, totally. Yeah. This will be, yep. All through, I think, there'll be little media events and explaining what's going on. And, you know, we even talked about, Bruce was really good saying that when they built the skate park, he had the homeowners across the street come out. He visited all of them and told them, this is what we're doing, and got them on board. And the same idea, getting them out, showing them the designs, getting input on what they like and what they see, I think is very, very important.
That'd be a good role for Craig. I know he really enjoys chatting with the neighborhood, especially around the skate park. Right, Craig? Okay, that's wonderful. Craig, actually, you're up for an update on the Avon River, the shoreline.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry about the late thing. I was merely watching you guys trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, and I realized I clicked on the link that was just watching the thing, not joining it. So, the update on the Shoreline thing is that we took a bit of a leap of faith and bought all the wood and all the hardware. So there's a big pile of that stuff down at Fanshawe, and we're kind of ready to go. But we're still obviously looking for a bit more money to pull it off. But I think we'll figure that out as time goes along here. And the design is done, and so we're ready to go. We just gained the waters down now, so I guess we can maybe do a bit more work on the design part of it, just to make sure the elevations are all right. But we'll probably be the timing wise, we'll probably be shooting for probably February again when we'll be doing it. So it's a go, and we've got the materials. Need a bit more cash, but again, Charlene's working hard on that, and we've got the money that we can get from Environment and Energy. Charlene's put an application into Friends of the Environment, in addition to some bit of money from the Rotary. So hopefully we can cobble it together and get the funding for it. So that's the update.
Okay, that's amazing. You're also up for the Invasive Species Project update.
Yep. Actually they were in there today doing the work. Brandon Williamson and his crew put the signage up yesterday, and they apparently, I didn't go down, but they're apparently in there today doing the work on the European buckthorn. So that's the stuff where you paint the stems and knock it out that way. So I know he's been liaising back and forth with Quinn a bit on that, to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand's doing there. And again, I'll talk probably to Brandon next week to see how it went, but that work should be finished today. They might go back and do 2 days worth. I'm not quite certain. I haven't talked to Brandon today, but anyway, it did happen.
Craig, at the time, we had talked about doing a media release just to explain to people what's happening. Do you think there's still value in doing that at this point?
I think so. I think there's always value in that. So I guess maybe that's something that I could cobble together next week. And when do you start again?
Me? January 4th.
Okay, well, we could do it January 5th.
I could help tomorrow. I could put
Okay.
something together tomorrow.
Okay. Tomorrow I can't work on it, but I can certainly work on it the 1st of next week and put something out. Maybe we can get some stock photography that we've got kicking around to use as part of it. And I think there's value in sort of reiterating what the message is with invasive species, and specifically the species that we were targeting in there. I was walking the dog through there the other day, and you could see they've really reduced the amount of what's that purple stuff called on the ground? Myrtle. There's another name for it. But there is still a patch of that I know Jay Ebel would like to come in the spring and take another swing at that, knock that out. And by getting rid of that myrtle, it'll allow the native ground cover to come back in, like the trilliums and so on and so forth. Right now they're being outcompeted by the myrtle. But, that'll be something that'll have to wait till spring. But maybe we can work together on that, Emily, and get that out.
Yeah, I'm happy to help with that. Jody?
Yeah, just a note, kind of along the same lines. Yesterday, of course, on social media, somebody posted a picture of the sign and was like, what's this all about? So, I mean, within an hour of you guys probably starting, it was on social media already. So I just said, I thought it was for the Japanese knotweed. So I was just like, yep, they're taking care of invasive species sort of thing. But yeah, it'd be good to have some messaging out there as to what exactly is happening, because of course, the minute anything happens, people take a picture and put it on social media. So
yeah, and the timing was unfortunate. I didn't know it was going to happen until yesterday late afternoon, when I got an email from Brandon saying, hey, can you let Quinn know that we've got the time to go in tomorrow and we're going to do it.
Right.
Or else we would have made sense to do it ahead of time. So I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, it is what it is, right? So people are aware, which is great. I mean, it's great that people are down there and that they're asking questions, and it's an opportunity for us to engage people with that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But there's pictures you could use if you go on social media and ask them for their permission. There's actual photos
Of the sign.
Yeah, pesticide.
You can do that, Craig. Go on social media and ask
Yeah,
them.
that's my forte.
Sorry, Bonnie, I cut you off. Sorry, Bonnie, were you trying to say something?
No, I just said pesticide use.
There is some. Okay, so yeah, Craig, I can work on that tomorrow and I'll be in touch with you early next week with that.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah. Sammy, Compost Cow Project. You have an update to share with us?
Before we leave there, can I ask Craig something? How much short are you on your money? You know?
We're probably about $6,000 short.
And did you try talking to Quinn or David or to Ed again?
No, I haven't talked to Ed again, but that's my go-to next move after Charlene has exhausted her moves. But yeah.
What's the timeline? Like, what we have to have it done by the end of the year, or like I'm thinking for the water. I know the water is out right now, right? So
yeah, as far as the construction goes, the timing would have to be just before the water goes up again in the early spring or late winter. That's when we have to have it done by, but we don't have to have the finances really until after it's done. Fortunately, we can just use some bridge financing through our office to pay for the stuff and then figure it out later. So that'll give Charlene some time to do that.
And the committee will have their $10,000 again in the new year for the 2021. So that's always a consideration too. If you're not starting till February, you'll have that additional $10,000.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So we've got the $10,000 from 2020, and then we'll bill for the $10,000 for 2021. So that gets us up to 20. And then I think Ed said that. Gosh, I can't remember the specific numbers. I think I hit him up for another 10 grand from Ed. And then Charlene was going to see what she could do about getting money from Friends of the Environment. I don't know the timing on that, but she had a couple of other sources as well. I think the Rotary itself can kick in $2,000 or $3,000. And then hopefully, if we have to go back to Ed, I'll bet he can maybe make up the difference. So it's, I think I'm not too worried about it.
Okay, the Compost Cow Project, Sammy.
Okay, so the Compost Cow is going very well. We're still taking food scraps from the Screaming Avocado, and we're starting now to actually get compost, which is really exciting. One not bad thing, but unexpected is that the tech program is not very reliable. So we unfortunately cannot have the compost bins made by them. So Ms. Ritzma is actually going to go out and she's doing some research to find some good bins that she's going to use the money to buy this year so that we can get that in. And yeah, we're hoping to put those out. I think she's going to get 4 of them. So, and then we'll distribute them in main areas throughout the school. So the front foyer, the cafeteria, if they start to use it again, because right now nobody can go in the cafeteria, but main areas like that. Yeah.
Sammy, Ms. Ritzma actually sent an email that Casey forwarded to Jody and I think today or yesterday with a sample of the compost bin that she's thinking of. So after this meeting is done, I'll take a look at it and get back to her.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Okay, the proposed glass plant. So at our last meeting, we discussed the proposed glass plant that is being considered at council right now. And at the time, we felt that we didn't have enough information to make a motion or a statement of any sort coming from the committee. Since then, we've been sent information about the project, as much as has been released to the public. And since then, I actually spoke to the council, not on behalf of Energy and Environment, but I did mention my position with the committee. And basically the Coles Notes version was just that more consideration needed to be taken, in my opinion. I'm sure there's been a lot of discussion about this. Both, I know that the councillors have been really busy with meetings about this. There's been a lot online, there's been a lot in the press. So I assume that all of you are fairly up to date on where the project is at. And so this is on the agenda to discuss whether or not E&E as a committee would like to make a motion of any sort, whether in support of or against the project, or requesting more information, or anything along those lines. But I wanted us to have a discussion about it. So does anyone want to, Anna?
There's just I went through all my notes today and there's still so many questions. I wondered whether a few things, whether the city had actually done an environmental assessment and whether this project was passed by the climate coordinator or whether the Conservation Authority had seen it, and whether there's where we are. I mean, I sat in on the council meeting, but I didn't have any sense of where we are or whether it's possible to make any changes or stop this. I mean, a number of people are calling for it to be stopped, but I'm wondering what E&E can usefully do. It seems to me that there is a demand for a public meeting of some kind. I mean, yes, the council meeting was open, but that wasn't dialogue. It was just listening and questions being asked. But it feels to me as though the community needs to have some kind of public forum, as we did with Tom Patterson, to hear answers to these questions. So I thought that's something that we could recommend, is that there be a public meeting. But I wonder if Jody and Bonnie can update us on where we are with it. I mean, how close are we to a decision being made?
Well, I can speak to, you were talking about the environmental assessment. So there are a number of reports that are now posted on our website. I think there's about 12 of them. And
17 altogether.
17, okay. And there are environmental reports there. There's also Upper Thames did like a water shed kind of analysis of that kind of thing. So there is some information there. Personally, there's the one thing that I would really like to know is the greenhouse gas emissions. So I have repeatedly asked for that information, and I'm hoping that we will get something along those lines, because I think that's an important piece of the puzzle to understand what it's going to do to our carbon footprint. So that information isn't available yet. As far as timelines go, we are having a meeting on the 14th of December to kind of get more information from the company. So it's not the kind of meeting that you're describing, Hannah. It is more of an information question and answer kind of questions from council this time to the company. And then their representatives would come and answer that. And then the decision on the cost sharing agreement, which is sort of the next step, is on the 16th of December. So that's the timeline. I don't know, Bonnie, you have some things to add?
Yeah, I signed on and watched their meeting today, and they discussed about the greenhouse gases, and they said they were in the process of doing that. They had the representative from the ministry, I think the environment, and they had some technical people there too. I And the part about the dormitory, they were just answering that, and I had to leave because it was time for our meeting, but because they were going to run till 4:30, they were having so many questions, right? The dormitory part, they were explaining that it'll be set up for 48. There'll be no kitchen facilities. It's just basically a washroom, a place to sleep, and a desk. And there'll be 12 people there all the time. Everybody's going to have their own place off-site. So, but those are just in case that in climate, weather, or different things that happen, they have a place. They said, somebody asked the question about this doesn't happen in Canada, and they stated how it does actually happen in Canada. I know of two places, Cami and this Listowel place. That's the only ones I've heard of so far that had it. And the one with Cami, when they were done with it after about 5 or 6 years, they donated it to the city. Listowel tore theirs down. So that's all I know about. I've had people send me some information on that. I myself put out a couple feelers. My national union got back to me and said they didn't see any environmental concerns with it. But I also reached out to the National Occupational Health Clinic, and they're looking into it. They're going to get back to me. These haven't got back to me, so hopefully they get back to me before next week. But at this point right now, how the ministry was sort of explaining it was, I mean, he went through all the criteria that any business has to go through, and explaining how they have to meet, if they're a heavy standard, and they're not considered a heavy standard, and they're not considered a heavy industry too, which a lot of people were bringing up, saying that they feel they're heavy industry, but they're actually considered not. And because of the new technology that they've been able to do, there won't be further development there, because they're going to be able to run 2 lines through the one furnace, which they couldn't do before. So there won't be a further expansion later on, like second stage, which what they had been talking about. And what else did he explain about? Explained about how they don't use antifreeze or anything, like nothing goes into the water, how the water comes in with the minerals in it, goes out the same way type thing, right? And he talks about the silica and the different stuff they're using is natural occurring. So it must be the safer silica they're using. I'm not sure about that one, but I mean, I read all the reports. There's like about 1,000 pages, but I mostly after I got through the first couple, I just sort of went to the main page, the summary page, and then just sort of went back to it if somebody raised points about stuff, But I'm not, I don't have a chemistry background or anything. I was a safety person at the plant, and I was used to reading material safety data sheets and stuff like that. But I just rely on their summary and what they're saying. And then they were comparing. Today, the slides were really good, and I hope they'll send us a copy of them, because they got into more details. They got into details about what they're going to be paying people. So the lowest wage in the plant would be $17.50 and up. But I mean, their engineers and all that are be making like $90,000 in that. But I think they said like the guys working in the warehouse would be $17.50 to $25 an hour. And even when the people are working on standby, they're still getting paid. What was I going to say about the trucks? 50, like 120 people come in to go to work in the morning, 120 leave to go home at night. And then there's another 50 that sort of come and go. And then there'll be 50 trucks total that will come and go during the day, which isn't too big, really, I don't think, compared to some of the other plants. Oh, I know what they compared them to. They compared the water usage. The guy that was talking about the water, he compared the water usage to other factories. And they also laid out where this factory is, how many other factories of smaller sizes could go on there. And I think it was 8. And then they compared the water usage from 8 plants, the trucks from that many plants, and the sewage and all that stuff going back and forth. And they were way below the level then. And they also compared them to other plants that use water and how many cubic meters they're using a day. And they were below the level on that. But it'd be really good to get those slides to look at them in more detail, because he basically read the slides. I mean, it's not to get into the question and answer that he answered, maybe more complex questions, but they certainly went into more detail than the other slides that we got. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but that's, they were coming off like the ministry when he was talking, talking about what the environmental standards were like years ago, and then the next sort of years what they were like, and now what they're like. And then they also emphasized how I believe the air emissions are changing in 2023. They're going to actually meet those targets, but they're below all the targets they should be. So that's basically what I got out of it. I mean, there was a lot more said, but okay, that's it.
Sammy, and then Mike.
I just wanted to express what I was thinking about this whole project, which with the whole climate action plan coming to council and a climate emergency declared, I don't think that a factory that is polluting, even if it's meeting a lot of the targets, even if it is still polluting, and I don't think that's what Stratford needs right now. If we're trying to start thinking about our carbon footprint and what we're doing to our planet, if we want to start thinking about that, start moving forward as a community and lower our emissions, I don't think a factory that is polluting is the right path.
And Mike? Mike, you're muted.
You're still on mute.
All right, is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay, I want to bring in another point of view. I have read, like Bonnie and Jody, I've read a lot of those reports. And to me, as a technical person, you can pretty much take a report and present your case and make it look the best possible way you can for a presentation to a potential client. My house meets the standards of emissions, you know, because it has a 96% gas furnace and blah, blah, blah. It does. But this place, this particular plant is going to have an impact, which is the equivalent of about 5,000 times my house. So even though it may meet the standards on a parts per million basis, it could nevertheless provide a huge, huge loading into the atmosphere of the city. Now, on the research that I've done, and I wish that Bonnie or Jody could maybe correct me on this or tell me that I'm right, but from my reading of the reports, it looks to me like they take 2.5 million gallons or 2 million liters, sorry, of water a day, and they intend to put about half of that down the sewer. Am I in the neighborhood on that, Bonnie and Jody?
They're taking in 8% and 2.7% are going back out because the rest goes in evaporation.
I'm not interested in percentages because I'd have to know the whole city literage values. But as far as I can figure out, all the water that they take, about half of it goes back into the sewer. The other half gets evaporated. Well, I worked it out, you know, it
actually is about a quarter, okay?
Pardon?
It's approximately a quarter because they take in like a little over 8%, but then only like about, well, around 2.7 goes back out. So it's about a quarter of the water comes back out.
I don't believe that, Bonnie. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's in their reports.
Well, their report also says that they anticipate taking on average 2 million liters a day and sending back just under just under 1 million liters through the sewage system. Now, I worked it out, and you and Jody, I think, got a copy of my renderings on this, that just to provide the heat of evaporating 1 million liters every day is the equivalent of the impact that the furnaces of about 5,000 or 6,000 homes have. And this is all in one place. And this is a tremendous amount of heat and a tremendous waste of resources. I thought about this and thought, is there a solution? And there probably would be. They keep talking about recycling the water and reclaiming the heat. Well, even if they don't want to reclaim all of the heat because they send it up the stack, they could, instead of having a stack, have a long set of pipes underground, and they could dump the heat into the soil, sort of the reverse of a ground source heat system. And that would turn a lot of that steam back into water, which they could then finish cooling and use it again, and they could really increase their percentage of water reuse or water recycling. And I guess my point is that if they could reduce the amount of water that they have to turn into steam in this plant, then that would also correspondingly reduce the amount of natural gas that they would have to pipe in order to make the plant run. And if they could reduce by the same amount the amount of natural gas, that would reduce by up to, I don't know what percentage, the emissions coming out the stack, which do, upon the burning of natural gas, have particles in them. So that's, my one concern. Why do they have to send it into the atmosphere when in the 21st century, there are so many ways of getting rid of heat or reclaiming things that do not have to go into what we breathe. The problem is that the plant is going to be located right at the edge of town from where the prevailing winds will guarantee that whatever comes out of that smokestack is going to go over the entire city. And I have some real problems with that. And probably if they don't have solutions for that, if I were still on council, it would probably lead me to say, no, your plant would be better suited on a Great Lakes shoreline somewhere where you could put pipes out into the lake like they do from Toronto into Lake Ontario to exchange heat. But, you have to decide, we have to decide whether Stratford needs this or wants this. It would be great to have the employment. It would be wonderful, as Chris Ricketts suggested, to possibly build a community of 21st century light industries around it. In fact, if they were going to develop that, they could probably sell the heat to other industries. But I can't see this as a very viable solution. Just send it up the smokestack, and as long as you satisfy the provincial government that on a parts per million basis, it meets the standards, that doesn't mean that it is acceptable to the city of Stratford because of the huge volumes that are coming out of that plant. I've said my piece. Thank you.
Jeff, I see your hand up.
Mike has put it more eloquently than I could, and I did. One of the things that I asked at the first information session was that, and it came out of their discussions in Guelph Hermosa, that the company's claims about the amount of water that they could send back, they could recycle and versus that would be lost or dispersed through evaporation. The Wellington Water Watchers and other people pointed out that you don't. They're claiming that it's a closed system and that there's no risk of harmful contaminants in the groundwater, but it was pointed out that the figure that they were ascribing to evaporation was not possible in a completely closed system. So as Mike said, either the intensity the steam leaving the stack and the concentrations would be a lot higher than than what they were quoting, or there wouldn't be the opportunity to recycle as much water as they claimed. And I do appreciate that the company has made some effort to be more transparent than they apparently were elsewhere. But as Mike says, and you can say it's a NIMBY thing or whatever, but minimum standards are okay until you have to, until that's what you're left with. Will you, can you abide living next to a plant that is emitting sulfur dioxide, even if it's the minimum standard? Is it a standard that you accept? So, I mean, and I would like to, I've read the Chris Ricketts article, and I thought it was very, is very well reasoned. But I think that if there was one, problem with it was that it expected, or it assumed good faith on the part of Sheeny when it came to things like labor standards and following minimum environmental standards. And I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know that we can trust that a company that's been cited for union busting and other sort of unfair labor practices, because they've been more transparent this time. Can we trust that they in fact will meet those minimum standards? Can we trust that they won't go back to the city, the municipality, as they did in Guelph Arabosa, and say, well, we had this many experts, but we've got this other parcel of land, and we'd really like to put in another dormitory or another emergency preparedness center. And that's again leaving aside the manner in which this has come to council with the MZO. I think it's unfortunate because there's a lot of there's a lot of positives that could come from industry relocating to Stratford, but it just in totality it still doesn't sit right. And I think a lot of people are probably in that boat at the moment.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to this? We still don't have a suggestion of what this committee should do, if anything. And my apologies, we may have a new attendee of this meeting in a moment. Anna, I see your hand up.
We're getting big.
Where is she? Oh, I just wonder what we can usefully do. I mean, is it possible to postpone it to address some of these issues? I mean, the issues are so huge. Why are we doing this when we're putting in place a climate action plan? Why are we endorsing something that's using fossil fuels when we're trying to, I mean, there's so many issues. I mean, the issues of jobs, I understand that we can't fill the jobs that we have in this community. So but I guess the overall question, is it a fait accompli? Is it going to happen? What can we most usefully recommend? Hi, Ruby. Is a postponement to address some of these issues what we could recommend? A public hearing? What would be most useful? I'd like to hear from Jody and Bonnie. What would be most useful at this point? Hi.
Mike is here.
Here, let Mike take a stab at it first.
Yeah.
Okay. We are the Energy and Environment Committee. And Jody and Bonnie and the rest of council have to deal with finances. They have to deal with zoning. They have to deal with standards. They have to deal with all kinds of stuff. But we are Energy and Environment. And from my point of view, as a member of this committee, I would be glad to make a motion that we recommend to council that they tell Sydney to find ways of evaporating a whole lot less water than they do right now and reclaiming a whole lot more heat. Otherwise, Stratford would not be able to accept the development of this plant because of the impact on its citizens. So I'll make that as a motion.
So I think we'd need some like percentages or numbers beside that to make it more of a directive, I guess.
I'm not so sure we're in a position to state those percentages, but rather we could send them back to the drawing board and then we go through the decision-making process again when they improve their act. I don't know if I can find a seconder or not.
And what do other members of the committee think about that?
Is it just the water usage? I mean, it's also to me, and Sammy pointed this out too, it's the burning of the gas. It's the use of that of fossil fuels when we're talking about getting to zero emissions. So it's not just the water. It's also, to me, it's why are we endorsing a plant that's consuming so much fossil fuel? Is there no other, I mean, in the interventions with council and the discussions with the company, people talked about finding other ways of fueling this. They have indicated there's solar panels on the roof, but there's no indication how they plan to use solar energy. So it's water, it's land, it's fossil fuel. So maybe we should talk about more than just the water.
Let's go Jody and then back to Mike.
Just a suggestion. Colin Simmons, I think it's his name, was the Green Party candidate. He did come and speak at council. And I can't remember if it was when he spoke or when he sent us email, but he did suggest that this would be a much better project if it was powered by electricity. Like if the furnace could be electric rather than gas. So that's something to consider as well.
Are you hearing me? Am I on the air? In reply to Anna, in my view, Anna, the majority of the energy and the majority of the effluent coming out of the stack are directly tied to the amount of water that represents the difference between what they take and what they put back into the sewer and has to be evaporated. You cut back on the amount of water that needs to be evaporated and all the others come down correspondingly. The other thing, I guess, while I have the floor again, this plant is going to be built somewhere. They're going to build it. So as far as Canada or Ontario is concerned, and this is getting back to what Sammy said earlier, it is not going to change the overall carbon footprint for the province or the country. It will change the carbon footprint for the city of Stratford. Given that the plant is going to be built, council has this tough decision of trying to decide whether it'll be built in Stratford or not.
Craig.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about this thing, but it just makes so much sense to me to have the thing located along the lake someplace. I don't understand why that you know, what happened there? Is it because Stratford has close proximity to the automotive sector in the area, like Cami and so on and so forth? Is it a transportation thing? I mean, I'd just be really curious to know why they targeted Stratford. Is it just straight old lobbying, political lobbying? But just from an environmental standpoint, I just don't understand why it's not along the lake someplace. But I guess that's not something that we can find out, or it's not our job to recommend where they put it. But I don't get that at all. I don't know.
Well, their reasons were the natural gas. They need access to natural gas, and they would like rail access. So those are two qualifiers, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah, like I don't know why you wouldn't be able to find that somewhere along Lake Ontario.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another thought. Like what's the size of that thing again? Is it 200 acres? The site?
I believe it's 111.7 is the part they're having. I think the total acreage might be 218, but just that one section, the rest is just annexed.
Yeah.
That's the only section, and it's still agriculture, so it has to go through a public process for the other plants that are going to go there or hopefully go there soon. That parcel is, I think it was 111.7 acres or hectares. I get that all mixed up.
What they're using what they said from my notes from the presentation made by the company was 175 acres that they're using.
Well, maybe that
so it was the size of 8 or 9 other plants.
Yeah, they did show that.
I mean, there have been several people asking why other brownfield designated land was not targeted for this, and plants that have closed or other places that would have access to water and rail that, plants that have been abandoned. Someone mentioned the Honeywell plant. I don't know them. And there was another plant that was mentioned that are in the vicinity that are already designated for industrial use, but are not in use, and that would have the services already there because they were serviced plants before. So that's one of the things that was asked by a few interveners.
Yes, like I asked staff to send a report on the size of the plants in Stratford. So it would be approximately like taking Dynamag and Ison together. It's very large. It's huge. It's like 1.1 million square feet, I think, and they're running around 400 something. I think the RBC Bank is the largest building in Stratford. I think it was closer to 500,000. It's the biggest, and then they had listed how many acres each of them are on, right? But their main reasons were natural gas, water, close to a highway, had railway. And then there's other things they look at, like, do we have a lot of storms here? Like, do we have flooding or hurricanes or tornadoes? And all businesses sort of look at, what do we have in our community? Do we have churches and shopping and stuff like that? I mean, they have a huge list that they go down. It's interesting. I know when some of the Japanese plants were looking at coming over here, we had to send a letter like saying, how often we have storms, how good is our hydro, like how often do you have outages and stuff like that. And it's interesting what plants look at. One of the ones that was coming from Japan, I remember them asking, like, how many churches do we have? It's interesting how different companies that are coming here, some of the questions they ask. Now, we don't see that. SEEDCO or the planning department take care of that stuff. This has, been a very unusual process for us and very educational, that's for sure. I emailed and asked staff to try to get today's presentation and put it on the website so that everybody can go on and take a look at it. Because they did compare their wattage usage. I don't know if you remember that, Anna, and they compared other stuff and when you looked at, say, if there was 8 factories there, they would be well below the level if you had 8 factories there, that were doing all kinds of different things, and they would all have their own emissions. You might have 8 stacks that are I don't know, 30 or 40 feet high. And they went through all kinds of scenarios, right? I mean, all the other factories that have come to town, I am assuming all go through the same thing through staff. Staff looks at all the reports that are required, whether they're industrial 1, industrial 2, industrial 3, whatever they are, and then their processes and all the reports that are required. You know, that part, I mean, it's just big. It's really huge.
It's massive. It will become Stratford, the city of glassmaking. Forget about it. It won't be this Stratford Festival City anymore. I mean, my question is, I just don't understand where we are. Is it going to happen? It seems as though the mayor, or from what we have learned, what we can garner from the press and the interventions, is that it seems as though there's a great deal of support for this. So are we in a position of just trying to modify what's going to happen anyway to get, that's what I can't tell. Is there real change possible?
Let's go Vonnie and then Jody.
I think Anna said what I was going to say based on earlier comments, and her last comment is that is our energy into a motion into we don't want this plant, or is it, if it's already coming, then do we go to Mike's motion? How do we change what they're proposing to do? So that's my question. If it's a done deal, then where do we, how does our motion, what kind of motion do we make if it's already going to happen?
With all due respect, if it's a done deal, we need to man the ramparts or staff the ramparts and fight the province and tell them that we are a municipality that makes our own decisions.
I would say I would recommend that you would go with both things, maybe make 2 motions or make it a 2-part motion. You know, this is, we do or do not want, and then if it does happen, these are the things that we'd like to see changed if it's going to go ahead. I don't know. I would recommend that. Just another piece of information that this is the important part about public consultation, because I've learned so much from people doing research and sending me information on stuff, which is so important. Anyway, someone did send me some information about emissions in China. Basically, they are not allowing more glass plants in China because they are trying to cap their greenhouse gas emissions. So this is something that would be called downstreaming, I guess, where we're sending that problem to somewhere else, basically. So that is also something to consider, I think.
Yes, I received that report too, and I had replied back to Cody about that what I saw was that in 2018, basically all the industry have to, you know, start to reduce their greenhouse gases, and they've got targets. So, and then they were in the report too, it also talks about how it's much cheaper to produce it here in Canada because our gas is cheaper and our hydro is cheaper. And I kind of got that they were talking about the labor was cheaper, but I couldn't figure that part out because I'm thinking I always heard that the China workers were paid hardly anything. And they would have to, well, they're going to pay what, $17.50 to $25 is their minimum wage, sounds like there, and the rest will be up. So that part was kind of confusing to me.
I think in China, they're using a lot less automation than they would use here. So they would need a bigger workforce there. I'm just on that. But it's significant. We also have carbon emission targets here. There was just on the news today talking about how for the first time in 10 years, our greenhouse gas emissions in Ontario have gone up, or they had the numbers for 2018, I think. So for its first year, our emissions have actually increased for the first time in 10 years. So yeah, so China might be able to decrease theirs, but over here in Canada, ours are going to go up.
I wish they would have had in the report what ours was compared to theirs. Like if theirs is going to be stricter than ours, or
they have a lot more industry there, but it's also, they're polluting a whole lot more. They're they're a lot bigger than us. So, but I just in the grand scheme of things with carbon emission, that's why I really want to know what the greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's a critical piece of making this decision. I just don't know how we can decide without knowing what that impact is going to be.
So I'm just gonna pop in and state the obvious that I'm not, I'm juggling a couple things on my end, but I like the idea, Jody, that you present, that we do the kind of two-parter, and perhaps, well, I think we should include in it that we request the GHG emissions information prior to council making a decision one way or another. Mike.
Getting back to that two-part decision, I think from my point of view, if Stratford could make a meaningful difference in the amount of climate impact this plant would have on Canada, on Ontario, I would sooner have it here than to see it go a few kilometers away and just add to the overall mess. We are desecrating our planet. Mm. And they have the technology, they have the knowledge to not evaporate so much water and to reduce vastly the amount of energy that this plant requires. If Stratford Council has the ability and power to send them back to the drawing board, then I would suggest they do that. And that was the meaning of my motion, and I really would like to find a seconder.
Well, I'm happy to second it. However it takes. You know, and I think we need to include in there the greenhouse gas emissions point that Emily is making too.
I also like the idea of the two-part motion saying whether we support it or not. And if it is a done deal, then and it is already coming to Stratford, then we suggest these list of suggestions, including water and GHG emissions.
So Mike, do you have, for everyone's benefit, do you have the wording of the motion that you have on the floor?
Casey, did you get it?
Would you guys be happy if I got 3/4 of it, maybe?
Oh, well, let me try again.
I'll show you what I have. I'll read to you what I have so far.
Okay,
so Mike's initial one, that the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee recommends council direct Xinyi to investigate ways to evaporate less water and a plan to reclaim a larger amount of heat. I'm not sure if that's everything, but then we also want to include a requirement that the greenhouse gas emissions report, that there is a greenhouse gas emissions report supplied prior to council making a final decision.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment to the motion. And just the way you have it is perfect.
Okay.
Well done, Casey.
Thank you.
So that's seconded by Anna. Do we have more discussion on it? I see.
Are you wanting to make it the two-part? Like that's the, are you wanting to put a yes or no if E&E supports the plant, or just leave it like this?
We can do that afterwards,
okay.
Depending on how this one goes.
Well, can we though?
Deal with it the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Anita, you had your hand up for discussion.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the plant, about how much this natural gas furnace, you know, I think I've heard operating at 1600 degrees Celsius for the next 12 to 15 years. That's a huge amount of carbon. And it just makes no sense. If we're doing this, supporting this industry in the time of a climate emergency, it just seems like, it seems just wrong, in my opinion. if they could find a way to make their industry carbon neutral, if they used an electric furnace the way that a consortium of glass furnaces in Europe are doing it, then I think I would feel much more comfortable having it here. But just to know that furnace is going to be burning carbon for the next 15 years when we're supposed to be reducing our carbon footprint, it just seems hypocritical to support it. So I do understand about the jobs and that they're producing energy saving equipment, but the glass, the solar panels they talk about on the roof are just that's a future plan. It's not a done deal. So there's so many things about it that aren't being done. So if they could say we're going to put an electric furnace in, then I'd feel much more comfortable about being behind the project. But it's not an environmental, and the 50 trucks a day coming in, that's huge too in the carbon that they're putting into the air. It's not insignificant. So, you know, these are all factors I think that need to be weighed in. So if I can't see that that there is an effort to reduce their carbon footprint to as close to zero as possible, I don't feel that I am in favor of the project.
So then is it modifying the motion that if council votes in favor of this, that E&E recommends that the operations of the plant be carbon neutral?
That sounds reasonable to me. You know, if we're planting a few trees around Stratford is not going to do something if we're supporting an industry that is spewing even though it's within provincial guidelines, doesn't matter. It's such a huge plant, so much carbon that it's producing. It doesn't matter that it's within the provincial guidelines. It's a huge polluter. So that's the point I think Jeff was relating to earlier. So yeah, if they could show that they are operating at a carbon neutral level, you know, I could feel more comfortable about going behind that. It still concerns me about the water. I don't think, given our water source, that it makes me very comfortable about the water use they have. They should be beside something that would be very hard for them to drain dry.
I just don't think it makes, I mean, I understand the spirit of the motion and wanting to provide council direction, but I don't think it matters. I don't think it would really make an impact to say, you know, if it's approved, it has to be carbon neutral, or we recommend it be carbon neutral. I mean, that's sort of like saying, you know, if we we can recommend, we can wish a lot of things, but I mean that that in itself is not much of a directive. So I don't know. I guess procedurally we'd have to vote on Mike's motion first, but I would be more inclined to vote to say, you know, the E&E urges council to reject the cost sharing agreement without a clear indication of greenhouse gas emissions, and and that council be directed. I think that's the way. I just think that's the way that we could make the most impact. I don't know whether anyone else agrees or disagrees, or whether we should go to a vote on Mike's particular motion. I don't disagree with Mike's motion. I just I think the things are maybe out of order as they currently stand.
Hey, Mike.
It's up to you, of course, how you vote on my motion, and it doesn't really matter to me whether it passes or not. We all have our own feelings towards this. But whatever the result of that first motion's vote, I will tell you now, I will make a second motion right afterwards. And that motion will say that Energy and Environment advise council to reject the plant under present environmental standards that they are proposing.
Okay, then.
I really, don't feel we're in a position to talk about residences on site or the amount they're going to pay or the size or the zoning. That's not energy and environment. We're talking strictly about carbon. We're talking about emissions. We're talking about energy, however it arrives at that plant. And we're talking whether we want that in Stratford or whether we don't. And I don't think I do unless they change their environmental impact.
Because they have the opportunity to be environmental leaders, right?
I was just going to suggest maybe the second motion you just said, Mike, should come first, just in the order of things in the meeting. This makes more sense.
Well, I had them in the order that I had them, so that the second one, if it came up at council as the second one, might maybe help convince them to act on the first one a lot more strongly. But
okay, well, go.
It doesn't matter. Okay, switch them around. Casey, can we switch them around with the consent of the seconder? Emily?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I can switch them around.
Okay, let's do that.
So then we need to vote on the one that Mike shared second?
Yeah.
And you need a seconder, or did Anna say it?
Anna, will you second me on that?
Well, I seconded the first part.
Motion too.
But now we're going to reverse it. So the first motion is going to be, we advise council to reject, right?
Correct.
Procedurally, I'm making a mess of this, having two motions on the floor at the same time, and I apologize for that. But will you second?
It's a messy situation.
Will you second my second motion, Anna?
Yes, but I want it to come first.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, so then Anna has seconded that. So any more discussion, or can we vote on that? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. And then Casey, will you do us a favor and read the second one that was actually shared first, and we'll vote on that?
Okay. Please. Okay, so that the Energy and Environment Committee recommends council direction ye to investigate a plan to evaporate less water, ways to evaporate less water, and a plan to reclaim a larger amount of heat, and that they require a greenhouse gas emissions report prior to council making a final decision.
You know something, that doesn't sound as good after we've passed the previous motion, does it? Penny?
What does the previous motion say exactly?
That we don't want them.
But you're basically saying if council turns that down and it's going to come, that this is what we want to see. We want to see that they're going to be more energy efficient and produce less greenhouse gases and, you know, be an environmental leader.
Bonnie, you just made a lot of sense there. So,
did you want to add sort of the carbon neutral wording into the motion, or not, or electric furnace into the motion? I don't know.
That in itself is another discussion, because I don't think any any manufacturing facility under present technology can be carbon neutral. They can be forced towards carbon neutrality. So I would sooner leave that out for now.
Okay, so
The chairperson's back. We can call the question.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. It's just better if I'm muted most of the time right now. So the motion, sorry, Casey, can you reread it?
That the Energy and Environment Committee recommends Council direct Shinyi to investigate ways to evaporate less water and a plan to reclaim a larger amount of heat, and that a request for the greenhouse gas emissions report is received prior to Council making a final decision.
Oh, my sound was on, sorry. Bonnie, do you have a question or discussion?
Yeah, like, do you mind reading the first one we just passed again?
The one to reject the proposal, that one?
Right.
Okay.
What do we say again?
That the Energy and Environment Committee advises Council to reject the proposed plant under the current standards proposed by the glass company.
I'm rethinking that we should have something more with more teeth in there about why we're rejecting it, you know, because of you know, a reason why, like why we're thinking that. It's because we're an Energy and Environment Committee and we're looking at the water usage, the energy usage, the gas usage. Like, I think we should just, what do you think, Jody? Don't you think we should have one more thing on there? Why? Not just because we're not really saying anything. We're just saying reasons. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I mean, a reason for rejecting it based on water usage and greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
Perhaps you can add that into that motion.
And then the next motion makes sense because then we're saying, you know, if council doesn't, if it gets passed, then we come forward with a motion of how we'd like to see them reduce their stuff, you know, and it's a good time now. I mean, they've talked today about how they used to use coal and gas is more environmentally friendly, right? So if you can, and I can't remember the reason why they said they couldn't use electricity. I just, do you remember, Jody? I can't remember.
Because there isn't a nuclear reactor in St. Mary's.
Thank heavens.
I didn't attend today's meeting from Ginny, so I'm not sure what they said.
No, that came out before, but I was trying to find on our city website, but maybe it was their last meeting.
I don't recall that, but I mean, we're talking technology that they should be able to, I don't know, if they're on the cutting edge, then they can figure out a way to make that work. And they will be, if they stick solar panels on, if they're reclaiming heat, they are producing a lot of electricity. So one would think to create a closed loop, that would sort of make sense.
They said until it's up in full production, which will be 2024, that's when they're going to put the solar panels on. And they'll go from, I think it was another 60 employees. So once they're at 24, then that's when they're going to put the solar panels on. But they're putting all the construction in that it's ready for solar panels, the roof. So
Mike, are you willing to adjust? I don't know. Bonnie's suggesting you adjust your first motion, but I don't know. Are you open to that?
It's been passed now, that first motion. It would require an amendment.
I just think, like today we got about 150 emails, okay? So a lot of people have took the time and expressed all the reasons. Other people just say, or the other day they were just saying, I'm opposed to this because of what was already been aired. Well, that doesn't tell me anything, right? You want to hear, and I mean, some people have added extra comments into it. You can tell a lot of it's a form letter, but they've got their points why they're opposed, not just, you know, like we're just saying we're basically opposed to it. We need to say why. I think that's important.
And I thought that the second motion dealt with that. We're opposed to it because we're upset about the amount of fossil fuel, the amount of heat, the amount of particulate effluent, the possible effect on the Avon River, depending on what they put down their sewer. I mean, for environmental reasons, I think we would recommend that council oppose this.
We don't even say that for environmental reasons is what I'm getting to. In our first motion, we just say, what was the last word there, Casey? We're opposed to the project or something. We don't say for environmental reasons or anything is what I mean. It's up to everybody else, but I just think it has stronger
We're
teeth.
opposed to it as currently presented by the company. And then the second motion says, you know, in the event that, you know, that they can evaporate less water and reclaim more heat. So I don't know. I think the second is sufficient. Although, I mean, we could add a whereas. You know, whereas there's, you know, we could integrate the second motion with whereas clauses, I suppose. But I mean, the substance of the motion would be the same.
Well, can we just add for environmental concerns for to the first one, just due to our concerns over the use of energy, the effect on the environment as it is currently outlined or as currently proposed?
Do you mind, Casey, if I talk, or Emily, do you mind if I talk on this? The purpose of that motion that we've already passed and the wording of it is that this company has presented to the city a series of reports. And if the city accepts the company, then whatever those reports say are going to become the standards under which it will be built. That motion says, please don't let this plant come into town under those standards. That's what I thought I was saying. Then the second motion is that if you want to meet our standards and really do come into this town, then for God's sakes, find a way to kill all the emissions and all the water use and all the energy use, or at least the majority of it, to make it acceptable to us. And if you can't do that, then please find another site. And that's about all I can say to Jody and Bonnie and council, because it's not my decision, it's theirs. But they know how this committee feels.
So how do we feel about that, the second motion as is? Are we ready to vote on it? Yeah, okay, so all in favor? Okay, looks like that passes as well. Thanks. Okay, so that is it under the proposed glass plant. Under new business, I have the climate change community survey. So just wanted to quickly be mindful of the time. Just suggest, and I'm happy to do this, suggest that we reach out to Mike Bites at the city about doing a couple social media posts about the survey, a press release, and also I haven't looked to see if it's on the city's website. I don't think it is, but I'd like to make that suggestion. Is there anything else that people have as an idea? Obviously share it with your own circles. But yeah, I'm planning on requesting that of Mike, unless anyone has any objections. And also happy to hear any other ideas of how to spread the word, because we really want a lot of responses. And I also wanted to mention that the target of the 10%, I've had some people mentioned to me that they're disappointed that it's not more aggressive. So encouraging people that they could include that in part of the survey. I think there's a comments part. So requesting that the target become more aggressive as well is something that we can encourage. So Anna, you had your hand up.
I was just wondering about asking organizations that would have mailing lists if they would send it out. I mean, Mike has probably done that with the Business Association or the Stratford Festival or Summer Music, just to send it out to membership, to organizations that have membership. I mean, it's a concern that crosses all areas of activity. So, I mean, between the festival and Summer Music, those would be huge lists. And United Way, the local, I mean, there must be organizations with members.
I'm just not sure if it's on Mike Bites' radar just yet. Like the County of Perth was taking sort of the lead on it. And so, I mean, we did get it to our committees, which was great. But I don't know, I haven't seen anything as far as on public. And I just looked on our city site. We do have a page called Climate Change, but it's not on there. So it'd be good to update Mike just to give him a little reminder of that's happening.
Yeah, happy to do that. And Anna, to your point, that's a really good idea. Another one that comes to mind is the City Center, because we've worked with them in the past. They've worked with us in terms of getting messaging out. So that's another one. So maybe I'll come up with a little list and I'll try to remember all the ones you mentioned, Anna.
Okay.
And I'll also ask you for a reminder.
Okay, I'll send a note.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I had one other thing that I wanted to put under new business, that's
that's my bit about the survey.
It's just that Jody had set out something this morning about the province's Blue Box program, and I went on the site, and in fact, they're taking feedback until midnight tonight. And I just wondered specifically what the concern for the city is and what point we should be making on that platform. Is it just because so much cost is going to be downloaded to the municipalities?
Yeah, from what I read, it's not about the cost as much as the scope of the program. So the province is suggesting a producer responsibility kind of thing, but it's not including a large swath of materials. So, and it, so it's kind of wishy-washy, and it could end up costing us more just because there will be more stuff thrown in the trash that isn't recyclable because it's not part of this program. So the point that I saw was that it's not adequate. It's not robust enough. It's not better than what we already have, and it may in fact be worse. I mean, perhaps it will cost the city less, yeah, but environmentally speaking, not the best. So,
okay.
Yeah, I could, if I can find it, I did get an email about it with, I think it was called From Environmental Defense, and they kind of went through a letter that you could send with the points in it about the, what's missing, basically, like this is a good idea, but let's make it robust.
Okay. Well, I can look online. Anyway, they are taking input until midnight tonight. So if anybody wants to go online.
Emily, did you get the minutes approved of the last meeting or not?
Of our last meeting? Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
That slipped by me because I had a correction there.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere in those minutes, it states that I got in touch with all the townships about noxious weeds or invasive species. Yeah. And I didn't. I talked to the county. And I think that if it says in our official document that I contacted all the townships, I could get into trouble. Would you change that, Casey, please?
I'll change it, Mike.
Thank you.
You don't want Mike getting into trouble for
no.
something else. Okay, so that's under new business. Any upcoming events? Oh, Sammy?
I just had one thing under new business. So me and Anna with Climate Momentum are thinking of doing a webinar, hopefully, definitely in the new year sometime, talking about a just recovery, a green recovery, and how to create your own climate plan, climate action plan for businesses, for personally. And we were just wondering if anybody on the committee would want to get involved in that or had any suggestions.
I would be interested.
Thank you.
Sounds really good. I don't have a lot of time to commit to it, but I say go for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty booked up until the new year, but we'll see. You know.
I'm just thinking we'll have some new members in the new year too, Sammy. But thank you, Jeff. That would be great. And maybe we can find some new recruits in the new year too. Thanks.
Some more about potential panelists.
Oh, in the next, I was just going to say, we are, I think, is it tomorrow's special meeting, Bonnie, that we're bringing the appointments for the committee, this year's committee will come forward.
Yeah, it goes tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. Okay. So we'll have more people next meeting.
Yay, good.
If you're interested, it's on the city website. You can look up who's going to be on.
More people of an age-appropriate nature would be welcome.
Is there anybody on this committee that's not returning? Because I just wanted to thank anybody that wasn't returning, because
I think the only two that weren't returning were Marianne and Matt.
Okay, they're not here today.
Yeah.
I just want to say this committee, I'm on lots of committees of council, and this is a very active committee, and we never have to worry about quorum, touch wood either. Like, you know, it's very impressive that people care so much and take the time.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Okay, so the upcoming events, do we have any? We don't. And
Christmas, holidays.
No, we have Christmas and New Year's celebrating in our houses all alone.
Yeah, it'll be different for sure. Okay, so date of our next meeting is January 7th at 4. 2021, new year, new us. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Jody, seconded. All in favor? All
Happy
right.
holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.